Ships. Yo everybody, Tripl-L here and welcome to Pair Spotlight, where we talk about a pair of characters, how they work and how they make us feel. Ideally. That's what I want it to be, but no, it turns out to be much simpler. This video specifically, we're talking My Hero Academia, and even more specifically, we're talking Izuku and Todoroki, talking about the dynamic that was established between the characters and ultimately why people ship it. So guys, this is a video that was requested a lot. It is one that a lot of people have been looking forward to, and now we're here, so let's get into it. So the structure of the video is going to be largely focused on talking about the whys of why people ship it. Before that though, we'll very quickly summarize the events that got us here and also just make some notes on any little details that are worth pointing out. So, talking about this pair and picking out story arcs to talk about, I'm gonna cheat a bit. Todoroki is one of the main characters. He and Izuku interact a lot. There's too many story arcs for this pair, but in the context of the question, why is Tododeku a thing? Things become a little bit simpler. There's only one story arc that matters, and that is the sports festival. And just as an aside, the sports festival really launched a lot of ships. The relevance of that arc for shippers is pretty astounding. Now anyway, Todoroki has pivotal roles in the plot, such as during the whole thing with Stain. Those are going to be ones that we disregard because as we'll see later, the Todoroki-Izuku fight during the sports festival is largely responsible for why this thing exists. So let's summarize that arc real quick in the broad strokes. Two guys met on the field of battle. They both had their reasons to win. They both had their traumas. The fight was super desperate. One guy was breaking all his fingers while the other guy was being too cool. Words were exchanged, motives were questioned, and eventually we ended up in a situation where Izuku was helping his opponent become stronger, forcing him to reclaim his identity. It was a very dramatic affair. There was a lot riding on it. Outside of the battle, you had the extra themes being thrown around, such as the fight between number 1 and number 2 being passed on to the next generation, and also, just the general idea of what it meant to be a hero and butting into a situation that you had no right to butt into. Throw in some emotional abuse and sad backstories, and you get an affair that had a lot of build up to it, climaxed in a desperate fight, and had a loss for the main character and an identity crisis for the winner. It was a big deal. This fight caused a dramatic change in Todoroki. Before this point, Todoroki was aloof and distant. After this fight, he became a very reliable ally and started defrosting and warming up to his classmates, which was really nice to see. Everything after this arc showed that this encounter was absolutely important. Izuku and Todoroki also developed a really nice friendship following this, and as a fan of the characters in general, some of my favorite moments are when Todoroki points out that Izuku's tendencies are pretty invasive and destructive. Overall, it's really cool to see how much Todoroki has changed because of this one fight. Now guys, you do need to have a proper appreciation for the scale of this. This is most likely the most popular ship in My Hero Academia when you consider all the fans active right now. Now I say most likely because it's relatively hard to try to measure this. Thankfully there is one useful tool that we can use to give us a sense of the popularity, and that is Google Trends. So just some general info on how Google Trend works. It models search interest, it keeps a record of that, and it presents the info relative to the highest point. So just understand in general, it's pretty much whatever is typed into Google, that is recorded, and that is what ends up on trends. So here I have the graph. Pretty simple. I looked up some terms: Izuku Todoroki, Izuku X Shoto, like the basic things people would be searching. And the quickest thing that we can see here is that Izuku Todoroki is more popular. But the important thing here is to note that Izuku Ochiko is also more popular in comparison to everything else because those two terms are general search terms. They don't necessarily indicate that people were looking for the pairing. For all we know, people could have been looking for the Izuku Todoroki fight. If you look at the tail end of the graph, you'll notice that it's not as dynamic as the later end, and that's because the anime just simply wasn't on. It's common knowledge anime will blow up any show, make it more popular. So as you're looking here and you look specifically at the shipping terms like Izuku X Todoroki and Izuku X Ochiko, you see a kind of different picture. Izuku Ochiko actually remains competitive with Izuku Todoroki in terms of the shipping. So what's the big deal here, right? So at this point I was thinking, okay, cool. But then I realized there's something else that we could search for. Tododeku. And once you include that search term, you get a very different graph. And what ultimately ends up happening is that Tododeku is winning like crazy. So the important things here to note are the days around where this started. We have a peak happening at the week of June 4th. The rise officially starts at the week ending in June 3rd. That's when Tododeku officially overtook the Izuku X Shoto in terms of how many people were looking for it. That week, June 3rd, was also the week that the fight between Todoroki and Izuku aired. So it's obvious what happened here. People saw that fight, and by the next week, people were searching for Tododeku much more. In other words, the fight got them hook, line, and sinker. They were into it. They wanted to see more of these two characters. And just naturally, fandom feeds into itself kind of, and eventually more and more people are searching for it. And also you have to keep in mind, not everyone watches the anime the day it comes out. They'll take time, but as we can see, that is most likely what is inspiring people. It was that one episode that set it all off. And now this is the point where we're at. Tododeku is ridiculously higher than everything else. But there is another thing that we should note. And specifically if we look back before the anime was airing. At that point, Izuku X Shoto was still competitive and beating out Tododeku at times. Which implies that once Izuku and Shoto have a strong moment that is about their relationship, it will most likely be able to fight and go back to competing with Tododeku. It's just right now that Tododeku is experiencing the anime effect, and we won't know how long it'll be before it goes back under control, or how long until the Izuku Shoto fandom rises up or gains more members. Overall, what you should take away from this graph is that the Tododeku ship is incredibly in demand, and that the majority of the shippers are most likely coming or were spurred on by the anime. Now guys, there is something that we need to acknowledge here. The Tododeku are an army that outnumber the other popular ships 3-1 at least. Why are there so many people behind this? Well, let's start by summing it up like this. This is a key phrase you should keep in mind as we're going through the video. Izuku is Todoroki's hero. This should not be a thing you can argue as not being true. After all, you see the way that Izuku's butted into Todoroki's life. When you look at it, Izuku went out of his way, abandoning his immediate goals because he saw that Todoroki needed help. At that point, he just had to do something. What I think is the key here is the emotional intensity of that situation. When you look at the fight, what makes that fight so great isn't just the choreography, it isn't just the powers. I mean, it is just one person causing massive shockwaves and the other person making ice walls. On a technical level, it isn't all that impressive. What elevates it are the feelings propelling the characters forward, the feelings that are causing them to go all out. I mean, in one side, you have one kid who ends up trying to break down walls and another who is clinging to his identity with all he can. It's an emotionally intense situation. It being in anime form, however, only serves to make it much more intense because now you add in the music and the voice acting. If you were an emotional person, chances are you would be swayed by this. So there we have the emotional intensity, an emotional intensity that we can assume most people have not experienced. Actually, you know what, wait. Maybe some people have in other directions. I just have to cover my butt here. Let's be more specific. An emotionally intense situation that was caused by a random stranger seeing someone and deciding that something needed to be done and ends up succeeding and changes the person's whole life perspective. That type of situation isn't one most people will find themselves in. And when you look at what Izuku did, it's pretty much like a biblical level intervention in terms of the altruism involved and the sacrifice. Izuku ripped down walls. Because of Izuku, this kid went to visit the mother that he hadn't spoken to in years. Izuku did a lot. When you keep those ideas in mind, it's like, yeah, it makes sense that some people would be taken up by the emotion in all of this. Now, people make sense of life through the lens of their own experiences. This situation by nature is one that people may not have any direct experience of, but they will still try to make sense of it in their own words, so to say. Now for this next little bit, we're going to drop the context of gender. We're going to bring it back later, but for now, we can just disregard it because we need to talk into generals. What will generally happen after you have people witnessing the situation is that you will get two groups of people. One that says, yeah, you had a moment, but that doesn't mean you're going to be romantically involved. While there will be the other side that will say, you two had such an emotional moment, you could be in a relationship later because emotions have already been shared. Now, naturally, the side that is of more interest in this particular discussion is the side that's saying that a relationship would follow after this emotional intensity. And you have to ask the question, well, why? Why are they of the perspective that that's happening? Well, it comes down to what people associate a strong positive moment between two people to. And the easy answer to that is love or passion. They would say that to be able to do so much for a person, it might indicate that there's something more, or that there could be something more. It all comes down to how people make sense of the emotions that are being thrown around. Anyway, back to the situation. We have these two groups right here. Now let's bring gender back in, and at that point we might have another split, with this group saying that they're not going to get together because they're probably not gay. So this population over here are the ones that still ship it, and the other side will ask, why are you shipping it? Some people asking, why are you shipping straight characters? So let's just be frank and knock the easy ones out of the park. Some people will just do it because it's fun. It makes them happy. The interactions between the characters is what they enjoy. These people may be aware that their ship will never happen, but you won't really be able to stop them after all. They will still do it for the enjoyment of it. There will also be the other people who are doing it because of it's taboo, or because it's forbidden fruit, because oh, it's so different. So like the idea of it being different and unwanted, you know, it'll be at play there. And also if you like throw in the extra context of like, yeah, Endeavor would never want Izuku to be together with Todoroki because he's like All Might's kid, and it's like, okay, you know, at that point people are getting really into the whole idea of it's forbidden fruit. And thankfully, because we know that this population, because we know that Tododeku fandom is so disproportionately bigger than all the other fandoms, we can be pretty assured that there are people who fall under that line of thinking in the fandom. Just because the bigger the fandom gets, the more likely you have more of these type of thoughts popping up. Anyway, then there's another group that wholeheartedly believe that it will happen, and this is the interesting one. If you're someone who's questioning it because of the gender and you're wondering how someone else could go for it, you know, it all comes back to their experience, or rather what media they have experienced and also what they may not know. We know that the Tododeku population is disproportionately bigger than the other factions, but we can't really account for their viewing habits nor their knowledge of the industry at large. We don't know what media they digest, nor if they know where their media comes from. And the reason it's important to point this out is because in anime and manga, there does exist the shonen ai, or boys love genre, a genre that showcases romantic relationships between guys. And we know that these series are a thing. In recent memory, there was, I think it was Super Lovers, and then there's the shows that are just kind of borderline, like Yuri on Ice. Point is, series like these cause an effect. Specifically, it plants the idea it's possible. This population of people wouldn't be stopped by the idea of impossibility just because they have seen other anime or manga that have done it. And then this is where their degree of knowledge will come into play. How aware is this population of the business aspect of anime and manga? And how aware are they of Shueisha, the company that serializes My Hero Academia? Now guys, I call this a Titanic of a ship in the title because most likely this ship is going to sink. And I say most likely because My Hero Academia has done a few things with some of the background characters that's really interesting, but we haven't seen that really moving into the main cast. Anyway, the people saying Tododeku isn't going to happen, they have trends on their side. We have to recognize Shonen Jump is a magazine whose target demographic are young boys, I think younger than 18. They are far removed from the yaoi genre or the BL genre. Then when you look at My Hero Academia's contemporaries like Bleach, Naruto, or even Black Clover and other battle manga, you'll notice some trends. The battle manga tend to play up friendships between boys to really high degrees, and you see it in Naruto and you see it in Black Clover. But as we see in Bleach and Naruto, the relationships are played straight when it comes to the romance between the main characters. So when it comes to the people that say it won't happen, they have history on their side. They have trends to back them up. But all that history doesn't matter if the average anime viewer doesn't know about it. I don't expect the average anime viewer to have in-depth knowledge. I expect that they are just someone who watches shows that they like and then play around in the fandom a bit without ever learning the logistics behind those shows. What that ultimately creates though is just someone who is only aware of what they watch and not the world that facilitates it, and there's not really much we can do about that. But in terms of answering the question why they ship it, it comes down to that. Like it's ultimately a problem coming out of just a lack of information. But even then, like the people might still want to ship it just because. That said, all things considered, does this invalidate the people who support Tododeku? No, of course not. What? No. Are you crazy? No. If they want to have fun with the characters that they themselves have fallen in love with, who are we to stop that? The point of a story is to enjoy it. Does it matter that it seems irrational to you? If it's a story, if there was ever an opportunity for people to be irrational, it's when they're engaging in fiction. Now, again, Tododeku is born out of an emotionally intense situation, and where there's emotion taking the wheel, there's going to be fanaticism, and this is true for all ships. If people take their emotions and conclusions that they have drawn from them and impose it as law on everyone else, well, you know, that's just a waste of energy for something as fleeting as shipping. Because really at that point, you're only arguing for hypotheticals, with the winner being the one who shouted louder for longest. And you know, guys, this is where we have to draw the line. We have to remember, it's about the fun of it. It doesn't matter in this context if people have their different ships, as long as people allow for others. It's cool, you know, that's just a facet of kindness, allowing the pursuit of a happiness that doesn't impose upon other people's happiness. So ultimately, you know, it's just don't be a jerk about it. If you're going to go Tododeku, do it, but don't make the mistake that we all have to fall in line under that banner just because it's popular. So anyway, Izuku and Todoroki, you know, Tododeku, it is a monster of a ship. It's got a lot of people behind it. And it's most likely coming out of like just, this was a very emotionally tense situation. And where you have intense emotions, people will start rationalizing it and associating it to other things that are known to cause intense emotions, such as passion or love for another person. And then we end up with the ship being blown up and becoming as big as it is. Ultimately though, it's a really interesting thing to see how or to what degree people jumped on this ship. And it's pretty interesting to see that it's so much bigger in terms of just the general interest that people have for it. Anyway, that's it. We're done. We're finally done. Video over. Got to the end. Woo, guys, this was a really long video, so I'm not going to have any afterward. I don't want to make the video longer than it is. But if you look down below, I'll probably have pinned a comment. If you want to say anything or you want to ask me something directly, just go to that comment. Otherwise, comment away, whatever. I hope you guys enjoyed the video though. So, guys, thanks for watching. Until next time, I hope you have a great day.